Picture this. You're sitting at your kitchen table, staring at a lease renewal notice for your flat. It's the exact same flat, right? Same walls, same carpets, same landlord. But out of nowhere, the rent is up 12%. When you ask why, the property manager just kind of shrugs and tells you, well, it's just the market rate. But what if that isn't the whole truth? What if there's something else pulling the strings? Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're unpacking a massive phenomenon known as machine collusion and a groundbreaking new law designed to stop it dead in its tracks, the FAIR Act.
Seriously, what if your landlord is using a shared black box to set your rent? We almost always assume that rent increases are just the natural result of supply and demand, right? We picture independent landlords making independent choices to compete for your tenancy. But recent investigations have totally flipped that idea on its head. It turns out, the real reason for your rent spike might actually be a third-party software quietly telling competing landlords across your entire area to raise their rents together. It is a fascinating yet absolutely stressful reality for renters everywhere.
So here is our roadmap for the Explainer today to really understand this technology and the legal fight back. We'll start with the rent hike mystery, dive into collusion by machine, look at the antitrust lawsuits, detail New Jersey's FAIR Act, break down the framework and nuances of the law, and finish up with your action plan.
Okay, let's jump right into part one, the rent hike mystery. The sheer scale of this problem is honestly staggering. Just look at New Jersey between 2021 and 2024. The median three-bedroom flat saw a 35% rent increase. In urban studios, they literally skyrocketed by over 60%. Now, we aren't just talking about standard everyday inflation here. When prices jump this uniformly and this drastically across the board, it leaves tenants feeling completely trapped. It heavily suggests there's a deep systemic issue at play behind the scenes rather than just normal market fluctuation.
Which brings us to part two, collusion by machine. Let's look at how these algorithms actually work.
$3.8 billion. Just let that number sink in for a second. The White House Council of Economic Advisors estimated that algorithmic pricing software costs U.S. renters roughly $3.8 billion in the year 2023 alone. Now, landlords often argue that this software is simply data-driven and totally harmless. But as this massive figure shows, the financial damage to renters nationwide is profound. It's a huge hit to the wallet.
So what does that $3.8 billion look like for you on the ground? It translates to a massive, recurring penalty. The White House estimates that algorithmic pricing slaps an extra $70 onto monthly rent for a single unit, and independent researchers from Wharton found a strikingly similar markup of roughly $53 a month. To understand this deeply, we have to look at why these markups happen. Basically, the algorithm fundamentally alters market incentives. It effectively advises landlords to leave units empty rather than lower the rent. This artificially constricts the housing supply just to keep prices uniformly high. That is a direct, quantifiable penalty you are paying just because a landlord uses this software.
Mechanically, here is how the market gets so distorted. In a healthy system with independent pricing, landlords guess market rates using purely public data, right? They compete against each other to win your tenancy by offering the best price. But a shared algorithm totally hijacks this process. Landlords pool highly confidential, non-public data, things like actual rents paid, occupancy rates, and lease end dates, into a single system. The software processes everyone's secrets and spits out uniform pricing targets. It entirely eliminates independent competition, replacing it with a coordinated strategy. Antitrust experts actually call this dynamic hub-and-spoke collusion.
Moving on to part three, the antitrust lawsuits.
As you might guess, the legal pushback to this practice is massive. We're seeing dozens of lawsuits targeting revenue management software providers like RealPage, resulting in roughly $360 million in proposed private class action settlements so far. But it's not just private citizens stepping up. The Department of Justice and multiple state attorneys general are aggressively involved. The core legal argument rests on Section 1 of the Sherman Act. Traditionally, this is the law that outlaws competitors gathering in a smoke-filled room to explicitly fix prices. The government argues that feeding non-public data into a common algorithm to achieve that exact same price-fixing result is the exact same crime. It's just executed by a machine instead of people in suits.
Let's look at part four, New Jersey's FAIR Act. While all those federal lawsuits play out, states are actually taking matters into their own hands, which is very exciting for renters. On the 20th of July, 2026, Governor Mickey Sherrill signed the Forbidding the Algorithmic Inflation of Rent Act, appropriately abbreviated as the FAIR Act.
This makes New Jersey the fourth state to implement this kind of restriction. It creates a direct statutory answer to the algorithmic rent-setting problem and really highlights a growing nationwide momentum to protect tenants. Now, if you are a renter, you need to track these dates. Governor Sherrill signed the FAIR Act in July 2026. Throughout the entire year of 2027, the deadlines to claim a piece of those massive national settlements are ongoing. Then, the hammer drops on the 1st of July 2027. The FAIR Act takes full effect and an official Attorney General complaint portal opens. This one-year buffer, it's completely intentional. It forces landlords to unwind their complex software contracts and migrate their systems. But keep in mind, your existing consumer protection and antitrust remedies remain fully available to you in the meantime. You don't have to just wait.
Next up, Part 5, Framework and Nuances. What does the law actually say?
The FAIR Act introduces a really critical legal definition to tackle this issue, the coordinating function. The law specifically targets competing landlords who use a shared algorithmic device that processes non-public competitor data to set or recommend rents, occupancy levels, or lease terms. By doing this, the software operator essentially becomes a coordinator, a digital middleman facilitating collusion. The statute makes it explicitly unlawful both for landlords to use these services and for the software companies to provide them in the first place.
But nuance matters immensely here. The law doesn't just put a blanket ban on all pricing software. What is strictly banned are shared algorithmic tools running on non-public competitor data. However, everyday data analysis, that remains perfectly legal. If a landlord uses simple spreadsheets requiring human analysis, or software that relies exclusively on publicly available data, that is absolutely permitted. The legal line is crossed the exact moment secret, competitively sensitive information is automatically pooled across multiple owners.
Finally, Part 6, Your Action Plan.
If you live in New Jersey and you receive a sharp, unexplained rent increase, or if you even suspect your building uses the software, here are 3 highly actionable steps you should literally take tonight. Step 1. Document everything. Save your renewal notice, track your prior rents, and look out for red flag buzzwords in emails from your landlord. Words like algorithm, market optimization, or specific software names. Step 2. Check for inclusion in the RealPage National Settlement Class. If you paid rent between roughly October 2018 and November 2025 on covered properties, you might be eligible, and those claim deadlines are totally public. Step 3. From the 1st of July 2027, report suspected violations directly via the Attorney General's portal. Until then, remember you can still file existing antitrust complaints. You now have a concrete statutory hook and a paper trail, which is infinitely more powerful than just feeling like your rent is unfair.
All of this brings us back to a really critical question. Who is actually setting your rent? Is it your landlord, or is it a shared black box treating competing properties as one giant, unassailable team? Your rent should not be dictated by machine collusion, and New Jersey has finally written that into law. Use your documents, watch those settlement claims, and prepare for that official portal. The algorithm has been setting the rules for long enough. Now it's time for renters to rewrite them. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. See you next time.